Good evening, Hall of Fame Dynasty members. It is February 27th, and we will be doing the NHL and NBA reviews for Week 8 for this tonight. But before I get into that, I just want to say I can't believe we're already at the end of February. It's crazy. The fact that baseball started, that we're winding down in hockey and basketball, and it really feels like it's only been a couple of weeks into 2019, but we're already a sixth of the way through the year. So I will say, I mean, keep strong with it. Everybody's been doing great. It's been a hell of a lot of fun so far. And so with that, actually, let me see
if that is any better for the microphone, maybe. Either way, let's try that. So with that, because that's the webcam. Okay, yeah, that's the one I want. So anyways, with that, we did have a question proposed by Steve, I believe, last week in the football chat. I'll be putting up a poll about it later. My personal thoughts on Kyler Murray are the fact that, yes, he was drafted in baseball, but the original owner assumed that risk, knew that it was there, and there is no guarantee that Kyler Murray is officially going to go to football. He says he's focusing on it. The combine has yet to happen. We don't know where he's going to get drafted. But on top of that, I think the biggest thing is that his rights are owned in baseball. You can keep him there if you want. If you want to drop him, he can always be scooped up if he ever comes back to baseball, if it's possible. With that, though, I do believe Kyler Murray should be separate. In my mind, it's a completely different sport. We haven't really had this precedent, but it's my belief that it's a different sport. It's a different skill set, obviously, but we have the draft picks for a reason. We don't know where Kyler Murray is going to end up yet. It's hard for me to say, yes, you automatically get this player, because it's unfair to the rest of the league. While it sucks to lose him in baseball, he is not guaranteed to stick with football. Maybe he doesn't like his draft price. He can always say no or find a way out of it, I'm sure. But at this point, I will put up a poll tonight. But my personal thoughts are it's different. It's a completely different skill set, like I said. But the biggest thing is the fact that it's in true fairness and legality for our league. I don't think he should just be able to be transferred over. With that, there's a lot going on in football. Obviously, we have guys like Le'Veon Bell, and Robbie Gould got tagged in free agent recently. There's been a lot of news, and it should be interesting to see what happens there. But we've got a lot of time before that, and we've got baseball season to get through. But most importantly, we do have hockey playoffs coming up, and we've had a lot of interesting storylines over the last week. Even though we were kind of quiet in the chat, it's been with only 2 regular season weeks left, it's been interesting, and it's really, really been a tough one for teams to swallow, and the fact that there is still a playoff race going on. And I need to open up my chat because, God damn it, Chris, you are blowing up my notifications at this point, or I'm assuming it's you. It's Steve. Okay. So anyways, getting back to it, we will be going over week 20, and we'll be getting there. So anyways, and I was on time. I was actually early because I said 7:52 and I went live at 7:50. It usually takes the stream a little bit to kick up. So I figured I would throw you guys a curveball this time. So going with it, let's get on to our review of last week. Like I said, a lot of us seem to be pretty busy as of late. I know with my job switch, it's been pretty crazy, but I've been sticking with it. I know you guys have too, and it's been a ton of fun. So with that said, there's not really any big news off the waiver wire. There's been roster churning. I know I've had my few because Chris Letang and Josh Morrissey got hurt. I know the Ducks and the Avalanche have trying to find those right pieces for the playoff run, and same goes for the Golden Knights. It is what it is. We all have guys at the bottom of our rosters or little day-to-day injuries. So it's been a lot of roster churning. No big pickups. It's this late in the year. It's hard to find them. And I did it. So with that, obviously, I think the biggest thing that we've got going on now are the current longest streaks active in the league. Right now, the current highest win streak is by the Chicago Blackhawks. It's a 12-game win streak. That's just I can't even believe it. I mean, Chris has been the one that reminds me every week. I don't even think about it. I focus on who's in front of me, and I've got a hell of a challenge with Keith this week in his Colorado Avalanche. They've been giving me a tough time, and it's been fun, and we've got a lot to go left. I wonder if he's going to be able to break it. I don't know. If I check here, obviously, Colorado has always been a tough team this year. That's why they sit in the 16-4 spot like they are. They're guaranteed to be a tough matchup. We all know that. So with that, if it's going to happen, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens by the hands of Keith. Unfortunately, I do need this game as the Chicago Blackhawks, because if I lose this game, one, it obviously puts it at risk for Chris to tie me, but also this is the battle for the number one spot. We'll kind of talk about that more later when it comes to this week's guesses and predictions for the week, so we'll worry about that then. But we do also have a longest loss streak, and that's by Steve and his Tampa Bay Lightning at 6 games lost in a row. It's been brutal for him. He sold off a couple of small pieces, he did sell off Gabriel Landeskog and a goalie in, I forget who it was, but he obviously had his fire sale. He's had a lot of tough luck though, because his team has been performing. He has been setting his team day in and day out as of the last few weeks. So I give Steve awesome job. I know you were talking to me about it, of just getting used to setting your lineup every day or every other day and going a day ahead. However, but you've really run into some tough luck of being close all week and then losing it out on the last day, or just your team not showing up, or the other team just absolutely blowing it out of the water. So you may be at a 6-game loss streak, but keep your head held high. You have a good team. So with that, let's get into the playoffs, though. I thought maybe the LA Kings might have been eliminated from the playoffs after losing to me this last week, but Nashville lost as well, and we'll kind of dig into that. But at this point, LA's not eliminated. And here's the funny thing is that if the Kings win out while the Preds lose out, the Kings will actually have the tiebreaker over the Preds because of their season series. They played each other twice, and the Kings scored 543 points, 542, while the Preds have 538. So if the LA Kings win out and the Preds lose out, the LA Kings would get that 6th spot at this point, which is crazy due to the fact that it's 4 points. It's literally 1 goal difference between them. So, Kevin, you better get on your act. You better keep it going, because at this point, the LA Kings are facing a pretty tough matchup this week. Or no, so far it's a tough matchup in the New York Rangers, and then they do face the Colorado Avalanche, so they will need some luck. However, Nashville does not have the easiest time, I believe. So they are facing the Ducks this week, which opens the door for the Wild to even come in and tie them at this week. However, the Preds do close out on the New York Rangers as well. So the Rangers kind of have the ability to play spoiler this week if they're able to beat the Kings, or if they lose to the Kings and are able to beat the Preds next week. So, Vic, you better get on your lineup, because you can play spoiler and make some people really unhappy, which would be fairly interesting to see. And like I mentioned, the Minnesota Wild are not out of the playoff chase. Even though the Preds have a pretty easy game that last week, the Minnesota Wild have held their own going into everything they've dealt with this year. So in week 21, they are facing an uphill battle against the Vegas Golden Knights. It's going to be tough to beat them, as we all know. But the Minnesota has a chance. They're only down 8 points as of right now, and we're at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night. Still plenty of time to battle it out, and that's one of the fun games I'm watching this week. So still plenty of races to go for the 6th seed. But with that, let's look at the current playoff picture and start with the number 1 seed, which still belongs to Keith. As much as I hate to say it, Keith still owns that top spot and does have the first bye week with his Colorado Avalanche. And next at number 2, we do have the Chicago Blackhawks, who they've been playing well. Like I said, 12-game win streak. but they hold the number 2 seed, and it's not by that tight of a grip, as the Blackhawks do have the Vegas Golden Knights, the Carolina Hurricanes bearing down on them, as they are only 1 game and 2 games out respectively. So these are your 2 bye week holders at this point. We still have week 21 and week 22 to go. There is a lot that could change, and a lot of that could come with our number 3 and number 4 seeds in the Anaheim Mighty Ducks and the Vegas Golden Knights. The Mighty Ducks sit 1 game behind the Avalanche, so they have to be rooting for the Blackhawks this week. Just thoughts of them trying to obviously bring down the Colorado. They could tie the Colorado Avalanche, and if they tie the Avalanche, I don't know at this moment where it would be in terms of seeding between those two, but I can always pull it up. And I know Jared has a rivalry with Keith, so as much as he wants to, let's see. So we have the Ducks up, Avalanche. So the Avalanche beat the Ducks the first time, and they lost on the second time. So right now it's a 1-1 series, but the Ducks actually scored much less. So the Avalanche will still have the advantage over them, but I'm sure Jared would still love to be on that same record level. Next, obviously, Golden Knights at 4. They're hoping for a Blackhawks loss this week, and they will face the Blackhawks next week. So that could be the division battle right there in week 22. So with that, and it'll still be, unless the Golden Knights lose and the Blackhawks win this week, the battle of the division will be next week, since they do face off against each other. And coming in at the wild card spots are the Carolina Hurricanes and the Nashville Predators. I call those the wild card spots because obviously 3 and 4 are pretty locked up. Carolina is a game behind the Golden Knights. However, I don't see them really switching and flip-flopping. The number 6 seed does switch to the Preds right now, but like I said, the Minnesota Wild and the LA Kings have the ability to steal that away from Kevin if they want, or if they have the opportunity. However, they need a lot of help to do it these last few weeks. So this is your current playoff picture. Looks fairly similar to NFL. The biggest difference here is Kevin should make the playoffs at this point if his team decides to show up these last few weeks. So let's get to week 20 review and see what happened this last week. And unfortunately, it wasn't as competitive as I liked it would have been. And the biggest difference in the league, if you trade Landeskog to Colorado, it probably would have been a situation that we see in NBA where Colorado's would have run the table, where Toronto is going to run the table in basketball. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to yawn. It's been a long day. So anyways, so we did have the Minnesota Wild obviously take on the Colorado Avalanche, and it was a brutal beatdown. The Avalanche just smothered the Wild every day, all week, by a score of 405 to 267.4. And like I said before, this makes the Colorado Avalanche a 16-4 record, while the Minnesota Wild dropped to 7-13, still only a game behind the Nashville Predators. How crazy would it be if this Minnesota Wild team fell this far, as hard as they did this year, and still made the playoffs? They did it in 2 other sports, and it's possible. So it would be interesting to see if Minnesota still has some of that magic from 2018 carry into this year. Unfortunately, it didn't happen in this week. As you can see, the Colorado Avalanche just dominated. 140-point difference between the skaters, and not only did the Colorado Avalanche find the back of the net more often, they also set up their teammates, as you can see here with the scores here. But they didn't play as clean of a game as you'd like. You want to try and stay out of the penalty box. It eliminates not only points from your fantasy score, but also the fact that it takes your guys off the ice. They have to play the penalty kill, and all of a sudden you're playing shorthanded. Not the best situation you want to do. That being said, when they were given the man advantage, Colorado took advantage of it absolutely. 24 power play points. In the time that I've been doing the show for hockey, I can't remember a time where I've had to type that many power play points for anyone. And that's a hell of a job by the Colorado team this week. So however you coached them up, Keith, You're doing a hell of a job, but 24 power play points is absolutely batshit insane. Now, goalie play was pretty comparable between the two. Obviously, a 7-point difference. Not a whole lot to really matter when the score finishes at 140. So, with that being said, Colorado not only dominated on the scoreboard, but they will dominate our 3 stars of the week, starting with our 3rd star of the week in center Dylan Larkin with 35.1 points. And the center position is a very deep position this year, and it shows for Colorado with center Nathan McKinnon at 37.5. And I think it's got to be for the 4th or 5th week in a row, center Alexander Barkov at 44.1 points. He has been playing a strong year this year. He's been one of the best, and on that Florida squad, they're not exactly consistent, but Barkov has been in our 3 stars of the week for many weeks running now. So, I mean, it's hard to go against what Colorado has done. They've proven why they're here and why they are a good team. Our next matchup was between the Chicago Blackhawks and the LA Kings. This one started out really, really terrible for the it started out actually fairly even. The LA Kings fell behind the Blackhawks, but they were at least able to make the score a bit more respectable when it came to Sunday night, and the final score was 412 to 333.5. The LA Kings trailed by over 100 points at one point, but the fact that they were able to knock it down to only double-digit loss is good for them. This is one of their best scoring weeks that they've had all year, and it's good to see them crack the 300-point mark. Obviously, it's one of the harder things to do, even with as many points as we score week upon week. It's usually that 300-point mark puts you in the top half of the league, meaning you should win your week. Now, mentioning the score here, if you notice, this was the first time we had 2 400-point weeks by 2 teams in the same week. 2 400-point burgers dropped, and that's a hell of a week compared when you look at the around the league. And the fact that scoring was kind of down overall, but we had 2 teams with 400 points, obviously top 2 teams in the Blackhawks and the Avalanche. So this brings the Blackhawks to 15-5, given that number 2 seed, and the LA Kings dropped to 6-14. Not exactly where you want to be, but they are still in the playoff race with some luck. As much as the scoreboard said that the Blackhawks dominated, you look at what we have here, and they really didn't. On a per point or per start basis, the LA Kings were right there in terms of performance with the Blackhawks. You can't fault them. A lot of it came down to scheduling. I don't know if Barnes ended up losing or not setting their lineup one day, or if it's just due to, I know Colin Dealey got sent down to the minors, so that obviously took away one of his goalie starts. And with Corey Crawford back for the Blackhawks, it is interesting to see. So that being said, obviously the Blackhawks were able to find the back of the twine a lot easier. It was much easier for them this week than it was for the Kings. However, they both played fairly similar games outside of actually getting goals on the board. Similar amounts of assists, penalty minutes, power play points, and goalie points. Excellent weeks out of both teams, both over 5.5 points per start. A lot of it came down to schedule and setting that lineup. I don't know if Barnes forgot it or not, but great week by both. Hell of a chase by the LA Kings to try and bring that score down. They just couldn't do it overall. Now, here's the funny thing is that with our 3 stars of the week, they're technically all Chicago Blackhawks. However, that's in real life. You'll see our 3rd star of the week was right winger Patrick Kane with 37.6 points and left winger Alex DeBrincat with 40.7, both belonging to the fantasy Blackhawks. But you had center Jonathan Toews looking like his old self again at 44.2 points, and he does belong to the LA Kings. Obviously, they were able to get what they wanted out of Toews, but it's funny seeing Toews, DeBrincat, and Kane all on the same board. Unfortunately, not all on the same team. So moving on, we have the bunch of jerks or Carolina Hurricanes, whichever one you want to use for their moniker, taking on the Nashville Preds. Now, I really thought that Nashville was going to be able to pull it out. Unfortunately, the Carolina Hurricanes showed up. They fed whatever magic water they've had all season to the Nashville Predators, even though they were on the road, they gave them something to really just slow them down. And unfortunately, the Preds just didn't show up the way they have been the last few weeks. And they lost this matchup by just over 60 points. Carolina's had a magical season. They've had a time where they've been one of the streakiest teams ever. Started out 4-0, then they dropped 5 in a row, if I remember right. Then they kind of went on a hot streak and another cold streak, and they've been on a hot streak as of late. Unfortunately, it doesn't help Kevin in his current situation with his Preds. So with that, the Carolina Hurricanes jump up to 13-7, while the Preds drop another one at 8-12, still holding on to that 6th seed, and they just might back into the playoffs at this point with the way that they've played and the luck that they have drawn. So looking at this matchup, it really wasn't close from the start. And the biggest thing that killed the Preds was 59 penalty minutes. You cannot go into a game or a week and be that aggressive. Kevin, I know you're itching for that playoff spot, but you got to get your guys under control. They are too crazy right now. Cocaine's not a good choice. You can't do that. But 59 penalty minutes, and a lot of it actually came from two people. Evander Kane had 9 penalty minutes, and then you had who was the next? Who was the biggest there? Evgeny Malkin, 14 penalty minutes on the week. And it's a brutal hit when one of your players, especially a guy like Evgeny Malkin, when he did put up a goal, 7 shots, 7 hits, had a good week, but just pretty much took it all away thanks to his penalty minutes. He was aggressive, brutal, and it just brought the Preds down a lot. Even if they dropped down to the 27 PIM that the Jerks were at, it still only brings them to about a 287, so it's a more respectable score. But other than that, both offenses were kind of slow, and the biggest difference here, even though it doesn't show on the scoreboard, came to blocks. And the Carolina Hurricanes have done that well for most of the year. They had 18 more blocks than the Predators. Big difference there. The Predators did have better goalie play overall with 3 wins, 1 less save, but they did allow 6 more goals, and that was the problem there, is the goalies didn't play the way they should, and it was just the fundamentals of the game. And I like what the Preds have. Unfortunately, they've been a bad luck loser these last few weeks. With that, even though Carolina only won by 60, they ran the table when it came to top performances for this week. You had center and right winger Sam Reinhart put up 26.2. You had center Mika Zibanejad with 29.7 points for the Carolina Hurricanes, and defenseman Esa Lindell with 37. That was a surprise one that I couldn't tell. That one really bothered me. Or not bothered me, but the fact that it surprised me was a better one. And with that, we kind of have breaking news, as you said. Apparently, okay, yeah. So the Bears are looking to trade Jordan Howard. We'll kind of break into some football here with the news that Steve just dropped in here. I'm not really surprised by that. The thing I'm really surprised at is I don't know where Jordan Howard goes. He's cheap. I don't know what the Bears get for him, but there's teams in need of running back. He didn't look great, and I don't know how much I really trust Jordan Howard, even if he does switch teams. I'll be curious to see where... Can you really not see the screen? Let me see. I have it up here. Can you guys seriously not see the screen? Let's see. You guys are fucking with me. God damn it, you're throwing me off. Since you guys doing this. Well, that's your fault if you can't see the screen, because it's still there. Wait, what the... Did it not broadcast? What the hell? Okay, apparently screen share stopped, so let's get back to that. That's weird. I must have hit stop sharing, so hide. There we go. Okay. Back to that. I don't know what happened, but Yeah, I know. I see it. I must have hit stop sharing, so that was on me. I said long day. Anyways, back to the matchups. Get back to this. Carolina dominated for the most part. Nashville couldn't hang on. So let's get to the next matchup. So, anyways, Vegas Golden Knights, they said they wanted to skip this matchup. I don't really feel like doing that. So we'll look at this one. Obviously, Vegas Golden Knights, they were expected to dominate this matchup. I know I expected it. I'm sure Chris expected it. I'm sure most of the league did. But that's not what happened. The Vegas Golden Knights were sweating up until Sunday night, and they were able to pull it out by a score of just over 40 points. And with that, Vegas, you got kind of lucky that your team showed up that last day, but you were trailing at times. It was pretty hilarious to talk to you throughout the week and see you so nervous. And, but it is what it is. You got the W. You got to stay at home and get it. And that does move you up to 14 wins and 6 losses compared to the Tampa Bay Lightning's 2-18. And let's take a look at this matchup and just why it came down to what it did. And this is exactly what it was. Both teams under 4.5 points per start. Very similar goal scorings. The few assists helped, but this was another matchup that came down to the basics. Came down to the fundamentals of the game of taking away taking away lanes, taking away shot opportunities, and that's what Vegas did very well with 11 more hits. Not a big difference there. But 13 more blocks, biggest thing there that's the biggest difference. So, and the reason I didn't believe Chris was he was the one that said he couldn't see it. So I thought he was completely kidding about it. Anyways, the biggest thing here really came down to the goalie play. And if the Tampa Bay Lightning had a couple of better goalies or at least a couple of better starts, they might have been able to win this one. They did lose it more with their skaters, with their inability to get to tie it up with assists. And the Vegas Golden Knights played a sloppy game when it came to staying out of the penalty box. So it is what it is, but Vegas snuck through. Later in the year, we might forget about this one, but this was a game where Vegas just didn't have it from the start. For whatever reason, they were not the team of destiny this week. They ended up winning it, but it was a sweater. I felt like Chris was sitting in a sauna the whole time because that's all he could talk about is, I can't lose this week. I can't lose this week. And luckily he didn't. A lot of it came on the back of Joe Pavelski as our number one star of the week for the Vegas Golden Knights. The only one to make this list, actually. So he has a lot to thank for his centerman, who is getting up there in age, but just showed that he can still win. And then our second and third stars come from Tampa Bay with left winger Jonathan Huberdeau and center Tyler Seguin with 34 and 27 points respectively. So on to our last matchup. This was another game that I expected to be a blowout, but wasn't. The Ducks traveled to New York, Jared taking on Vic, and for Vic, who has recently he's been getting his lineup set, he's been more competitive, but the Ducks have been a team that have dominated most of their opponents. That didn't happen this week as they won by 34 points, 314 to 280, bringing the Ducks to 15-5, that one single game away from the Avalanche that they have been trying to find all year, and they're doing their best. And the Rangers fall to 4-16. It is what it is for them. They look like they will stay out of the toilet game with the Tampa Bay Lightning, because the Rangers would have to lose out the rest of the way while the Lightning win out. And unfortunately, I don't see that happening for either team. So breaking down this matchup, the crazy thing is the Ducks didn't play up to their typical skill level, similar to the Golden Knights. We see that the New York Rangers had 58 starts, and with that, they put up 4.8 per start. Granted, 11 more starts might have brought that average down due to the fact that the high-end talent and obviously going to get some of the lower-end talent on the off days and whatnot. But the Rangers played a very good game this week. They obviously lost it due to their skaters, as we all do. But the biggest thing here was the power play points and their inability to find the goal or at least set up their guys for goals when the opportunity arose. Only 34 points. They played a very good game, and the other biggest thing was probably face-off wins along with shots on goal. It was a 40-point difference, or not 40 points, but 40 count difference for both of those stats. Obviously, it's more of a pile-up stat that the more you get, obviously it makes a bigger difference. Really, shots on goal would have counted for about 10 points, face-off wins for about 6, but the little things are what help you win. No hat tricks for either team. Both had 2 game-winning goals. Fairly even matchup between these two, and the Ducks pulled it out. Vic's team obviously played very well, but with how he sold away part of his team in the draft, we kind of saw this was going to happen. That being said, 37.2 points out of the goalie position was insane. Devin Dubnyk with 25.2, and I probably should have looked at that for our stars of the week, but they would have just been under. And with that, we have obviously guys like Thomas Hertl, Patrick Laine, and center Carl Soderberg, who was a pickup for the Ducks this last week. And that was a hell of a pickup because he's the number 1 star of the week with 43.4 points, the only player to break 30 points in the matchup. And so it is what it is. Obviously, Ducks would have liked a more convincing win, but they came out the winner, especially on a road game in New York. They were able to get the job done. So that being said, thank you guys for letting me know the screen didn't actually work. For whatever reason, I must have hit the wrong button. That's on me. So week 21 matchups, we have some really good matchups this week. We'll start with the best one of the week with the Colorado Avalanche taking on the Chicago Blackhawks. Both these teams, the number 1 versus the number 2 seed, a possible championship matchup, and we get it in week 21, 2 weeks before the actual playoffs start. We won't see either of these teams in the first round of the playoffs at this point, so we need to glean whatever we can out of this. Unfortunately, my team didn't get off to the hottest start. I don't like where it's sitting, and as much as I hate to see my week 12 or 12-week winning streak come to an end, I think it does this week against the Colorado Avalanche. Feels like his team just has the magic this week. I don't know. There's still plenty to play tonight. Something could change by then. But I'm going to go with the Colorado Avalanche. As hard as it is to say it, I have to go with my gut. I just feel like something's going to come to an end. It has to. And I'm hoping it doesn't. Hopefully I'm wrong. But I got the Colorado Avalanche in this matchup. Next, we've got the New York Rangers and the LA Kings. Both tough luck losers this last week. Both played very well. Obviously, the Rangers haven't had many of the 300-point weeks. So with that, I'm going with the LA Kings. They've got the higher floor. They've got the higher ceiling. The Rangers are a decent team, but they don't have the same offensive firepower that the Rangers don't have the same offensive firepower that the Kings do. They've been able to at least be in very good matchups. So next we've got the Nashville Predators and Kevin taking on Jared and his Anaheim Mighty Ducks. And as we speak, the Nashville Predators trail, and I have a feeling that's what it's going to be all week. I've got the Mighty Ducks winning this matchup. It shouldn't be really all that close, just for the simple fact that the Ducks won a game by 34 points last week, but that was on a cold week against a hot New York Rangers team. For whatever reason, they found their groove for once, but I feel like the Ducks should dominate every day of this week, and it won't be too much of a burden for Kevin once it comes to the end of the week when he sees that L up on the board. Now we've got an interdivision matchup here with the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild's looking to play a bit of a spoiler and get into the playoffs with the brutal schedule that the Nashville Preds have this week. The Wild have a chance to jump on and take advantage. And as we speak, the Knights only are winning by 1 point. But I'm still going to go with the Knights. Even though they had a weird week last week, I think they find a way to pull this one out, to pull away from the Minnesota Wild and try and make week 22 as interesting as they can. And for the final matchup, we've got the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. As much as Steve's finally been finding his team, finding his groove, there's just something stupid special about this Carolina team. Like I said, something in the water, whether it's amphetamines, whether it's cocaine, whether it's just some fake water he's feeding to the opposing team. I don't know what it is, but he's found that magical thing. So I've got the Carolina Hurricanes in this matchup. Moving on, so going from obviously the ice to the hardwood, we've got the league news for Week 18 for basketball. Unlike hockey, the waiver wire has actually been fairly active as of late, and it's been a lot with the Lakers and Nuggets mostly. The Lakers did claim Enes Kanter and Joe Harris, and in turn dropped Nicholas Batum and Dwayne Dedmon. The problem with Enes Kanter is who knows if he may just be gone from the team. Then again, the Lakers could always drop him if so, because there was a news story a few weeks ago that he was being looked for something. I don't remember what he was getting in trouble with. But, I mean, he's playing well for Portland. So, I mean, why not take the risk, especially off the waiver wire? The Nuggets did drop Nikola Mirotic for Nicholas Batum, dropped him and took advantage of the waiver wire as they did. And then Rajon Rondo is actually a free agent after being cut from the Toronto Raptors squad. We know the Raptors have been fairly active in the trade market recently, acquiring some top-end talent for basketball. Obviously, Rajon Rondo, old as hell, not that great, and Raptors are looking to stay as young as they can and as good as they can for basketball, for as long as they can. With that being said, we've only got a few weeks left of the regular season. The Mavericks and the Hornets have been eliminated from playoff contention, part of it due to schedule, part of it due to their record. I don't see either of these teams being able to come back and win out and put up the points they need to get into the playoffs. The Knicks are tied with the Bulls in wins, but are still behind them in the standings because they have three more losses, it's 2 more losses, and that's due to the fact of ties. So the Knicks are right there on the verge of the 6th seed, as are the Bulls, because the Minnesota Timberwolves have really been falling behind as of late. The Timberwolves have 72 wins. The Bulls and Knicks have 70, and it's going to be a close race for that 6th seed. Unfortunately, the magic may be running out for the Minnesota Timberwolves, but we'll just have to wait and see. So mentioning playoff spots, here's your current playoff picture. Number 1 seed, we all know it belongs to Jared and his Toronto Raptors. No one should really be surprised by that. And he's looking to dominate. He obviously, I believe the trade should be closed as right now with Joel Embiid and whoever else. It might be a little bit later. But if somebody could fact check me on that, I would appreciate it. Then moving on to number 2 for the Michael Jordan division, we have the Atlanta Hawks, who are currently pulling away from the Lakers as of the last few weeks. 3 weeks ago, the Hawks were sitting at half a game above the Lakers. Now they sit at 3.5. So the Hawks are kind of getting that stranglehold that they really have been wanting most of the season. Coming in at our 3rd and 4th seed in the first round would be the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Lakers. One belonging to the Larry Bird division, one to the Jordan. So we've got these 2 teams battling it out with their division leaders. The Nuggets have actually kind of caught up to the Raptors. They're still 18 games out. They don't have a chance to take over that number 1 seed, but they're at least putting up a fight. They crossed that 100-win mark this last week, which is good for them. And they needed it, but only 2 teams at 100 wins so far. The Lakers, like I said, 3.5 games behind the Hawks. They've got a few weeks to try and break that down. It's going to be tough, but they have their chance within these next few weeks. Now we have securely in the 5th seed right now the New Orleans Pelicans, who only sit 2 wins behind the Los Angeles Lakers for that number 4 seed. I don't think they'll have a chance to catch the Nuggets unless the Nuggets really stumbled over this next few weeks. But they do have a chance to at least move up, try and get an easier matchup. It's likely going to be the Lakers and the Pelicans in the first round, but we never know just because of how tight this race still is. Like I said, the Timberwolves do sit at 6 right now. I don't know if it finishes out the season that way. Timberwolves have a tough matchup. Obviously, they drew the Denver Nuggets this week, so it's likely going to be a 7-2-0 week for the Nuggets unless the Timberwolves can get healthy, but we may as well just change their name to the Minnesota injured list or something along those lines because it's been a hospital visit after hospital visit after hospital visit for the Timberwolves franchise this last month. So let's get into our matchups. It was a 2-week matchup. I did forget about half of it from my lineup, so it did not end well. A lot of it was the job change and a lot of things here at home. So Hornets actually got their first convincing winning week with 8 wins and 1 tie. Obviously, the Mavericks get 8 losses and a tie in that. And that does bring the Mavericks down to 45, 116, and 1, while the Hornets sit at 50, 109, and 3. So 5 more minutes on the clock for that, Chris. So obviously, Mavericks are now below the Hornets. Not where they want to be, but it is what it is. And a lot of it came just pure starts out of me. I know there was a few days I forgot about it because of the job switch, but also the NBA All-Star Week. I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention when they came back. The teams played actually for me, missing a lot of starts, this was a much closer matchup than I realized. The Mavericks just couldn't find it from the floor. They were able to shoot pretty decently from the free throw line, but when it came from shooting from the field, they were not great. And with that, there's 5 minutes on the clock for that Embiid and Harper trade. So, Vic, if you're looking to do it, you may want to try and jump in there in the last minute. But very similar totals, 21 steals for both. And the reason that it was for 2 bottom feed teams, they played fairly similarly. So the Mavericks team MVP was Larry Nance Jr. And after taking it to heart with what Keith actually told me, that the triple-double numbers are usually the better thing for here when it comes to MVPs rather than percentages. The Larry Nance Jr. performed very, very well for the Mavericks when he was out there. Obviously, good shooting percentage, only 41 points, but he did have 45 rebounds, 11 assists, led the team with rebounds especially, putting up a decent amount of points, 3 3-pointers in the mix. And then for the Hornets, it was Evan Fournier at shooting guard, who had a hell of a week. Double digits in both rebounds, assists, 67 points to go with it, and 9 3-pointers. Very good week for Fournier, and leading that Charlotte Hornets team to a win. Next, we have the New York Knicks get absolutely stomped by the Raptors. I don't think anyone's too surprised. I mean, maybe if this was week 4 or 5 of the season, we would have been surprised because the Knicks put so much stock into basketball, getting LeBron, getting higher draft picks, and it just hasn't worked out in their favor after dropping this week. 2 wins, 7 losses. Raptors, obviously, vice versa that. And with that, the Raptors move up to 119 wins, 43 losses, and 0 ties, while the Knicks are below 500 by 21 games with 70 wins and 91 losses and 1 tie. Looking at this, it really was a close matchup. And I know if you look at Fantrax, I got really confused by it because I thought that the Knicks should have won 3 games. And the reason I'll say that is I'll actually take a screenshot of it. Is I don't know what glitch happened in Fantrax this week, but somehow 1,066 is more than 1,165 according to the site, because I actually posted a screenshot just now on the chat that shows the points are in green for the Knicks for some reason. I don't know how that happened. It stumbled me for about 2 minutes putting the show together. I didn't understand what I was looking at. That being said, even though the Knicks didn't show it on the scoreboard with their 2 wins and 7 losses, they played very, very well compared to the Raptors. They trailed in most situations here, but they played a hell of a game with only 7 more turnovers, 6 less blocks. They played a very good game. It was just the fact that they couldn't close it out. You look at what they have, and it just wasn't their week. Anyone else, they're probably dominating them. And they still barely just got LeBron back. So maybe once he returns, and if he starts to turn into playoff LeBron, then he can carry the Knicks to the playoffs. So with that, our team MVP, this was an easy one for the Knicks. Obviously, Russell Westbrook, he made 16 three-pointers this week, put up over 50 rebounds, over 30 assists, and scored 149 points. Easy team MVP for the Knicks. And the team MVP for the Raptors was shooting guard Paul George. That's a real tongue twister there. He put up very similar stats to Russell Westbrook with 18 three-pointers, over 40 rebounds, over 25 assists, and then 134 points. Shot very well from the floor as well, which if you're going to put up 134 points, you pretty much have to do. So it is funny to see that obviously you had Paul George for OKC, you had Russell Westbrook also for OKC. Oklahoma City Thunder had a great week, and it is showcased in these 2 teams. So, anyways, ignore the announcement that the Hawks just put up, or Pirates put up in the baseball chat. We'll get to their game here. And they actually had a very good week. I was surprised, but they needed it if they expected to pull away from the Lakers. They were able to take this one 7-2-0, and they really didn't leave any meat on the bone. They didn't play down to their competition. So good week for the Hawks, and they're getting that stranglehold on the division. Good to see. 95 wins, 65 losses, and 2 ties, while the Timberwolves continue to stumble down the finish line. And it's tough to see Minnesota do that, especially with how well they played at the start of the season. I don't know if they can keep it up, and it's mostly due to health. They have the talent, but they're just half dead right now. And you'll see it here. I mean, we've seen the Minnesota Timberwolves play up to competition, play up to some of the top teams. They just didn't do it here. They just couldn't get the rebounds. They were so far behind on assists, and it was just more the fact of the teamwork wasn't there this week. They were able to limit turnovers, but that also meant they were limiting their scoring opportunities because they weren't being aggressive. They shot well from the floor and from the free throw line, but other than that, the teamwork wasn't there. It's hard to do that when you have guys that are constantly in and out on the bench because they can't play. But at least they did have team MVP Lauri Markkanen to at least back that up and give them a good week. He had a hell of a week for them as he went 7 3-pointers on the week, 42 rebounds, 11 assists with 76 points. You'd like to see more assists out of Markkanen, especially at the power forward position. Unfortunately, the real Chicago Bulls do suck, and he doesn't have a lot of good teammates, so it does limit his ability to get assists because he may set up a guy and they don't make the shot, and then all of a sudden you're missing out there. But Markkanen, great week for him as the Minnesota Timberwolves MVP. And then the team MVP for the Hawks, I kind of bounced around here. I didn't want to give it to Trae Young because he had a lot of turnovers with 15. He was able to put up a good amount of points with 51 points. But the other option I did have was, who was it that I was looking at? Trae Young, and other person I was looking at was Donovan Mitchell. Very similar stats, 88 points, so just trailing there, just not as many assists, more rebounds, but Trae Young, obviously 40-plus assists was great, showing that he can at least set up his teammates. That's good. That works in Chris's advantage, even though he's still shooting below the 400 mark. So we'll get to the Denver Nuggets and the Chicago Bulls. Just like the real-life Bulls, the fantasy Chicago Bulls did not play well, and that's to no one's surprise against the Denver Nuggets, who should have the number 2 seed were they in a different division from Jared. But Jared has the stranglehold on it as of right now. The Nuggets take this week 7 wins, 2 losses, just as many people might have expected. And that brings them up to their first 100-win season. Obviously, it's the inaugural season. Great to see them break the mark with a few weeks to go. And the Bulls dropped down to 70 wins and 89 losses on the season. So anyways, we'll get back to the matchup notes here. The Nuggets, they played pretty well. They shot great from the floor. The Bulls weren't able, can't say the same, but they were at least able to take advantage of the free throw opportunities they were given. The biggest surprise here has to be the fact that they shot almost as many threes as the Denver Nuggets. Now, they may not have taken as many opportunities, but they were right there. They lost it by 1. And it's crazy that they did that, considering the fact that they trailed by double the points that the Nuggets, they had half of the points that the Nuggets had. Everything else was a smackdown besides the 3-pointers and the free throw percentage. Obviously, the Bulls couldn't pull it out, but they did at least have Nikola Jokic work in their favor, who was their team MVP. As you look at his stat line, not many 3-pointers. He's not known for it, but 43 rebounds, 23 assists. Excellent week out of him at the power forward position for Denver. Bulls are happy to have him. And then obviously, I mean, nobody should be surprised when you see team MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo, number 1 pick in our draft. That was an easy pick this week. He obviously dominates every night that he's on the floor. Into our final matchup, this was the only one that was close, and it was the New Orleans Pelicans and the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't remember who I picked last week. Unfortunately, the Pelicans dropped this one at a much-needed time. They lost by 1 category. They were at least able to take 4. They didn't get trashed. It wasn't a hard loss week. I mean, you'd like to see them on the opposite end of this, but still grabbing 4 categories out of 9 is still a fairly good week against a good competitive team like the Lakers. This does bring them up to 90 wins, 72 losses, and still no ties on the year, while the Lakers sit at 92 wins and 69 losses on the year with 1 tie. And both these teams are battling for the position. I think this is a good preview of what we could see in the playoffs. But let's get down to see what happened between these two teams and where we may see this happen again in the playoffs. So this will be one that we focus on. Obviously, the Pelicans, great ratios this week. Excellent from the field and from the free line. They were able to get it done there. A lot of it came down to teamwork. Too many turnovers, too many solo possessions where obviously not enough rebounds, not getting into the post enough, and getting the offensive rebounds or defensive rebounds, either one. They didn't have the teammate mentality this week. They were able to outscore in 3-pointers, but when it came to assists, when it came to steals or blocks or rebounds, they weren't playing up to their potential. We've seen the Pelicans play as well as the Raptors or the Nuggets in any given week, but this week they just kind of fell by the wayside with the teammate, not teammateship, but the team play. Obviously outscored the Lakers by just over 20 points, and a lot of that came from Steph Curry on the week, as he had a great week for the Pelicans. I'm sure the real-life Pelicans would love to have him, but Steph Curry went for 117 points, 25 3-pointers, over 20 rebounds and assists each. So great there for the double-double type numbers. And then for the Lakers, we had point guard Chris Paul, who had an even better week in my mind with 45 assists, 22 rebounds, obviously not as many points, but he still put up double-digit 3-pointers for the Lakers. It kept them in contention all week and got them that last category that they needed, especially with, obviously, Chris Paul only had 6 turnovers on the week, so the ability to score without turning it over worked in the Lakers' favor to get them the 5 wins that they needed to have a winning week. So, damn it, I don't think I updated that. It should be week 19. Yep, should be week 19 matchups. And there's not a whole lot that I'm really looking forward to this week. Obviously, I don't expect to beat the Lakers. I'm going to give that an easy one to them. I've got to figure out my team. There's a lot that obviously Kristaps Porzingis got hurt. He was obviously a middle round draft pick for me, and I'm waiting on him. He's one that I'm excited for next year. He'll be a great addition to my team. But as of right now, the Lakers are in the top half of the league for a reason, so give them the win this week. This is the one I'm looking forward to. It's the Battle of the Birds. The Atlanta Hawks taking on the New Orleans Pelicans. Both teams are sitting about the same amount of wins. The Pelicans could play a bit of a spoiler here. While they can't take a top position in the playoffs, they could play spoiler and actually push the Lakers into that top spot and give them the bye week. So the Pelicans would have to play somebody different in the playoffs in that first week. Now, I feel like the Hawks have gotten a bit lucky at this point. I will fix it for next week. Thank you. Like I said, kind of threw this together today. Not how I expected it to. The show's actually gone better than I planned. But with that being said, I actually like what the Pelicans have been doing. They've gotten 90 wins in a much tougher division. They have to play the Nuggets. They have to play the Raptors. Obviously, they still have the Bulls and the... Who else is in that division right now? They do have the Bulls and the Knicks, but the Pelicans have been a much more battle-proven team. So I've got them winning this week. I'm not saying it's going to be by a lot, but the Pelicans seem like the team to really keep an eye on. They may be that team that could make a sneaky playoff run. So I've got the Pelicans taking over Atlanta this week, and it'll make for a fun playoff chase as well if the Lakers are able to put up as many points as we think they can this week. Next, we've got two of the bottom feeders in the New York Knicks and the Charlotte Hornets. Hornets have 20 less wins. I think we all kind of know where this is going. The biggest thing is how many wins can the Knicks take this week? Because if the Wolves and the Bulls lose like they should this week with their two tough matchups, the Knicks could take over that 6th spot this week. And so I've got I've got the Knicks winning this week. Nobody should be really truly surprised by it. Why did I put the Hornets? I don't know. I fucked that up. Oh god, I'm tired. They've got the Knicks. I've got the Knicks. Ignore the Charlotte Hornets logo. I don't know what I did. But I've got the Knicks winning this week. Next, we've got the Toronto Raptors taking on the Bulls. Raptors have been dominant all season. Bulls have kind of been left at the wayside, and they plan on selling off part of their team this offseason as they've already started. So with that, I've got the Raptors winning this week. And then with our last game of the week, it's the Nuggets taking on the Minnesota Hospitals, the Minnesota injured list, Minnesota debilitator people. I don't know. I'm losing it here. But I've got the Nuggets winning, and it is what it is. The Nuggets, pretty good team. Unfortunately, they are trailing the Raptors. Had they been in the Jordan division, they would have easily been dominating. They would have as many wins as the Raptors do. But even then, it would give the Raptors an easier opponent, so they might have more wins. So I've got the Nuggets winning this week. How much they can take away from the Timberwolves will be interesting to see because the Timberwolves don't turn the ball over a whole lot. They don't score as much, though, so I expect that to kind of balance it out. I'm guessing the Nuggets should take at least 6-3-0, if not a 7-2-0 week. And at this point, they are owning the Minnesota Timberwolves to 8 categories and 1 loss right now. So Nuggets are your champions for this week. So that being said, there's a lot to go on. Obviously, we've had a lot more trade talks, and I haven't even seen what the announcement was. I kind of missed part of it and the reactions to it. So since I still have about another minute here, I will go ahead and open it. Oh, goodness. So obviously that was the trade that... Okay, so the Pittsburgh Pirates are trading Charlie Blackmon to the St. Louis Cardinals for Bobby Portis, Jeff Teague, the 2019 first for the Bulls, the 2019 fourth, and the 2020 NFL second. That's actually fairly low for a guy for like Charlie Blackmon. I mean, Bobby Portis and Jeff Teague are not killers of their own, and you've got a 4th-round pick in there and a 2nd-round pick for 2020 for a team that you know is going to be good. I'm slightly confused by this offer, but I mean, it's, hey, to each their own. Player values and what you think you're getting out of it. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. And that one will go until 8:36 Central Time. The others are closed. I will be putting them through tomorrow. I have some things to take care of tonight. So I will see you guys next week. I will talk to you throughout the day. And take it easy. Let those fantasy dreams keep going.